Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name's Mike and this is Building Tinker, and today we're continuing our build with a 1/8 scale 1966 Batmobile from Fanhome DeAgostini. We are looking at issues 9 and 10 today, where we are going to continue building parts of the engine. So let's get building. So here we have the magazine and the components from issue 9, and it's focusing on the cylinder head. So let's have a look and see what we need to do. We've got 3 packets of screws, and this piece here is the cylinder head itself. It's a nice die cast piece. Again, I think the engine is going to be nice and weighty when it's finished. And we need to take the cover, which is plastic, and that sits on top of the head, and from underside there's 2 screws that connect it on. Now my guess is it will only fit one way, and that's correct. If it doesn't feel quite right, then you've got it the wrong way around. So just double check with the pictures. And there's 2 AP screws that hold all this together. And that was pretty simple. Next we have to install the exhaust manifold. There's 2 cutouts in the engine block, oval shaped cutouts, and there's 2 tabs on the manifold, and they will simply slot in together. Ensure you put the manifold the correct way round, so you should have this part of the exhaust manifold where they come together towards the top of the cylinder casing. Sorry, towards the casing on the top of the cylinder head. A couple of AM screws hold that one in place. And then we take the radiator feed pipe, and it plugs into this hole here. You can see it, the one nearest the middle 2 pipes, and there's a bend in it, so we take the curved end and we push that into that hole. Be very gentle. There we go. And it's going to head off in the same direction as the exhaust manifold. It's not the tightest to fit, so just be careful. I can see that wanting to fall out. We then have to attach 4 spark plugs. So there are 4 holes along the bottom of this cylinder head, and we have these black spark plugs. Well, I guess they're not plugs, they're the tops of the spark plug leads, so maybe black is acceptable colour. Again, if you're an expert in American Ford engines, which I'm guessing is what this had, as it was based on a Lincoln, let me know what the most common spark plug cap colour might be. So these are all right angled shaped plug-ins, and they all push into these holes. They don't come out straight, they come out at an angle, so they're aiming towards the back of the engine, same as the exhaust, same as the feeder pipe. Looks to be roughly a 45-degree angle, but I'm guessing there's some hoses are going to go on there at some point, and it will become obvious then what direction they precisely need to face in. But right now I've done it just like this. And now we take the engine block from the last issue, and we can bring these 2 pieces together. So with the alternator facing, I've got it facing to my right, I can now put the cylinder head on top, and it sits on top of these lugs here. It's pretty obvious when you get it married up, you can see exactly where it's supposed to go. We need to get 2 cm screws to hold this all together. Let's get this on the screwdriver first. Screws in from behind. There's quite a few bits attached to the engine at this point that you could very easily knock off with your fingers, so just try and be careful of those pieces. I've already knocked off one of the spark plug leads heads. I feel like that might be a repeating theme. To me, it would have made sense to attach the 2 engine parts together and then put the ancillary pieces on, because they get knocked off otherwise. It's fiddly this way, but with a pair of tweezers you can get them in. So I'm just going to put this plug back on. Get this bracket out of the way first. Okay. Okay, there we have it. I can see some of these parts falling off. I may go back and glue some of them at some point. Just a tiny bit of super glue on the end of those plug leads, but I want to see for sure how it's all going to go together first. We now have some tubing here, which they've conveniently tied in knots for us. It would have been better if it hadn't been, but there we are. And we need to cut this into some specific lengths. We've got a 70mm, an 80mm, a 90 and a 100 that we need to cut out of this one piece. So for that we're going to need some scissors. Let's get these parts out of the way. And we're going to need a ruler. Going to use my phone as a ruler. So we'll start with the longest, this is the 100mm. Then we need a 90. An 80. And a 70. We take the 70 and we push one end into the first of the spark plug ends. And then we wind it round up to the distributor. I'm guessing we just plug it into the first one we get to. I don't know the firing order of this engine, but I'm sure it doesn't matter too much. Then we take the next longest and we work our way around doing each plug. So let's get that done. I'm going to use my lens. Because Fanhome really conveniently wrapped this in knots for us, it's full of bends, which isn't helping. Just take your time, use a magnifying glass or something. There's a very good chance these are going to come off at some point during the rest of this build, and we'll be putting them back on. Okay, so that's all the plug leads installed to the distributor. They do give you an order in which to attach them to the distributor, and it does seem to matter because they don't quite reach otherwise. That said, we had quite a lot of slack left over, so you could just make them a tiny bit longer. Not surprisingly, this piece fell out. It's quite loose, so we'll put it back, but I think I'm going to be gluing that, but I may wait till closer to the end. It's likely to get bashed again, and if it's glued in, it'll probably snap. So I'd rather wait until it's ready to go in for the last time. I've done a lot of these builds, and there's some great intricate pieces to the engines and hoses and things. Invariably, they get knocked off multiple times before the body of the car ever gets put on. So I've tended to not bother fitting some of them these days and just wait till the end anyway. And that was the last step. So there we have it, an engine with, well, half an engine with one bank of cylinders, an exhaust manifold. We've got the alternator, the distributor, and we are ready for the other half of this, what looks like to be a V8. So now we're going to look at issue number 10. Now we're going to assemble the carburettor base onto the manifold. So there is a very long piece there and a load of screws. First step is to take the, we have here a base for the carb, and we're going to put the choke on there, which is 10H. Trying to make sure I know which pieces are which. I think this is the choke. For those of you like me who are old enough to have driven a car with a manual choke, you know how important these are. So the choke is 10H, which is not that. There's a lot of very small pieces in this one. Okay, I think it's this piece. It almost looks, from the end, it almost looks padlock shaped. It has a little pin that's keyed, so it can only go in one way, into a hole that's keyed here. And it's simply pushes on, and it looks like that. This whole piece now screws onto the intake manifold, and you can see there's a square here, which is the base, and this choke that we've just fitted is going to point down towards me. So I've got the choke piece on the left, and then this mounting part here is on my right. And we take 4 AP screws and screw this on. Okay. Now there's 2 more very small pieces, so we just need to identify those. They are 10J and 10I. Okay. I think they came in a bag separately here. One thing I would say about all of these part book model manufacturers, you need to make the pictures bigger. Trying to identify some of these parts from tiny little diagram pictures is really hard. So if you could just make them a little bit bigger. So we're going to spin this round, and we're going to take these, they're sort of square pieces. Again, they're not identical, so I need to figure out which is which. J is the fuel inlet, and I is the vacuum inlet, although I don't know how you tell which is which. Okay. I has a little pin sticking out of it, and J has a hole in the centre. We put J on this side here. It pushes into a hole in the plate, and there's going to be a screw hole here, a little pin sticking out here, and a little pin sticking up, which means I goes on the other side. Still not entirely sure which way up. Find out. Okay, again, those two just push fit into place. There's now a piece of hose. Cut the pipe into 2 lengths of 60mm. So we've got 2 pieces of pipe in this issue. We've got a very long one, and we've got a short one. So it's the long one we want, and we're going to cut it to 60. Keep that to one side. And that goes in here on the very small pin that sticks out of 10J. Just like that. We now take the centre of the carburettor, which is this sort of round piece, And with these lugs either side facing upwards, I'm going to turn this around again. I love the way they change the orientation of the parts every other picture just to keep you guessing. That sits over the top. And it just, there's some pegs in it, if you line them up correctly, it should just sit over the top of them. There's a few of them, so just take your time to line them all up. I'm going to use my magnifying glass again. There we go. So there's a few pins to line up at once, and some of them are trying to move around, so if you can use a magnifying glass to see where it's going, it does help. We need another AP screw. And that goes right down the middle here in this hole in the centre. And that'll stop that from popping off. Doesn't need to be too tight. Next we take 10G, which is a large square piece. Or is it? Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay, we need 10G, which is this piece. Okay, it's kind of an odd shaped piece. It's part of the carburettor again, and it has a shaped hole on one side for another piece to push into it, and that piece is 10L, which is tiny. Okay, and that it's so hard to see. That pushes together like that. And then this whole assembly goes onto this base here, which is 10K. Again, all of the pins on these are keyed, so it does help ensure you put it the right way round. And there we have it. A good click, and that is in. And then this fits on top. There are two holes in the top of this carburettor base here, top and bottom there, and this fits on top with the pins clicking into those holes. Okay, and the holes are shaped such that if you try it the wrong way round, it won't go in. So if you're having to push it really hard, you might have it the wrong way around. Okay, this is a very fiddly one, this, but it's coming together. We now have this bracket here, it's a sort of strange shape, and we have this bracket here. It's like an L shape with a bit coming off it. It has this very small shaped pin coming off one side, and that engages into the hole in the back of this bracket. Again, it is keyed, so it should only go on one way, and it will look like that when it's done. Don't know if that's focusing. There we are. So this This is the remaining piece of pipe from what we cut earlier, and this is another piece that they gave us, and you'll see they're pretty much the same length. One is fractionally shorter than the other, but that could be my measuring. There's a T-piece here with 3 little pins on it, and we put a piece of pipe on either end. It does just fit, it fits tight, but it also fits quite easy. There we have it. Then we take this bracket that we just made, and you'll see there's a hole on the top of the manifold here, and that's for this bracket to sit on. There's also a little pin which I think is used purely to help line it up. So first of all we get the screw, so we need an AP again, and just one. Position it over the screw hole, screw it down. Okay, and then this piece of pipe that we've just put this little splitter on, it fits into a hole in the top of the manifold here, so we'll feed it underneath the pipe that's already there, and that will fit. Just push down so that it looks like that. We're almost there. So there's one bracket left. Now this is going to attach to underside of our manifold. Again, you'll see it's sort of it's not equal, so you've got a large hole on one side and a small on the other, and basically, and these 2 little pins, so it sits over these pins here. We need a couple more AP screws to hold it in place. Let's just get the screwdriver loaded up. Quite soft plastic, so be careful with how tight you put these. And then we go back to the engine block from the last issue, and this is going to sit on the top, and these black plastic pieces are going to be used to hold it in place. It can only go one way round. There's a standoff here. My guess is that is there to I might be wrong. Yes, that is sorry, there's 2 standoffs. So it's positioned so that the larger hole is at the front of the engine. So the front, yeah, okay. I don't know what tubes it's fallen off already. So that sits over there like that. I'm going to hold it off the desk. There's too many bits that are going to get knocked off otherwise. And then we're going to take a DM screw, just the one. There's 2 in the packet, but again, one is a spare. It goes through the small hole. So we don't put anything in the larger hole. My guess is that gets used when the other half of the engine comes on, if at all. But yeah, it's probably from the other half of the engine. Let's pop our bit of hose back on that we knocked off. Okay, gently stand the engine up. And now we need to take these two pieces of pipe that come out, well, no, we don't. We take one of them, one of the pieces of pipe that comes out of the T-piece from the side, and it heads off towards the rocker cover here. That has to be brought forward and connected to one of the vacuum lines on this vacuum advance unit. It doesn't specifically say which, but looking at the diagram, this one goes into the one nearest the distributor. Yeah, they're not a very tight fit, so I think some glue on there eventually, or they're just going to pop off. And then this one here from the center of that T-piece, sorry, this one here from the carb goes again back to that same unit, and it goes on the outer of the two hose connectors of the advanced unit, and it looks like that. So one looks quite long. You can trim these if you really want to. I think I might trim that one. It looks way too long. Yeah, we'll cut that. This bit fell off again, so I think we're going to leave that off. It can go back on towards the end of the build. And that was the last step. And there we have the half an engine with the manifold on top and the carburettor. The carburettor is quite detailed, it's got some bits on it. Again, if you're pretty handy with paint, you could do a good job of weathering that, maybe adding some oil or changing the colours of some of the parts, just so that it's not a big block of silver. So it does need a little bit of attention, I think, with a paintbrush to really dress that and make it look fantastic. That's not something I'm going to do because I'm not very good at it. So I need to get a bit more practice in before I do that. But I know people that are incredibly good at it, and you only have to look on Facebook groups to see there's some really skilled people out there doing some great weathering and oiling of engines and other car parts. So maybe that's something we can do later when I've had a bit of practice. But there we are, that's the end of that issue. So issue 10 comes to an end, as does the video, and that leaves us with a good chunk of the engine done. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please comment, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care.